What's up, Alec Sports Show fam, and welcome in to another episode of the Alec Sports Show with your host, of course, Alec Pecanella. On today's show, I will be going over my more way too early college football predictions, as well as some NBA upset picks today. Let's get started. So, here's some way too early win totals for the 2024 college football season, in my opinion, as I am very knowledgeable into the world of college football. So, let's start off with Penn State. Penn State went. Penn State had a good season last year. They won 11 games. So, but the Big Ten is getting better. They just added Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. 4 teams. But I still think if you saw my Big Ten way too early standings a couple weeks ago, where I had Penn State, I think Penn State can win 9 or 10 games this year. Because Drew Aller's back, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. I think Lambert Smith is coming back for Penn State. So that tells me that Penn State's going to win a bunch of games this coming year. Number 2, Colorado. Now, I was wrong on the Buffs last year. I said they were going to win. No, I was right on them. I said they were going to win 4 games, and they pushed. They won exactly 4 games. I said over 4 wins, but they pushed, which means they were right in the middle between 4 and 5. So, therefore, I think they can win 8 or 9 games this year because Dion has been hitting the transfer portal and recruiting really hard in year 2. He brought in 5-star offensive lineman Jordan Seaton, who was highly coveted. Ohio State wanted him. Alabama wanted him. Tennessee. A lot of the big name schools wanted him. But he's supposedly signed his letter of intent to go play at Colorado. And then Colorado's also been hitting the portal hard for offensive line. To try to get Shedeur Sanders some good offensive linemen to protect him. Number 3, Miami of Ohio. If you watched any of my videos before last season, who was the one that said Miami was going to win the MAC? That would be me. I'm a genius. At least sometimes I think I am. And in that case, I was. I said Miami was going to win the MAC East and win the MAC championship. So they did both of those. Now, this 4th one is a bit controversial. It has nothing to do with me being a Ohio State fan. I think Michigan's going to fall off a little bit next year. One, because Harbaugh's leaving, probably to go back to the NFL. And J.J. McCarthy, if he comes back to Michigan, he would be the starting quarterback, but it would be with a new head coach. Supposing that, of course, Harbaugh goes to the NFL, which he's already hired an agent to do so. So therefore, I'm assuming that Harbaugh is gone. So therefore, Michigan, and you see, I said, if J.J. McCarthy leaves, Michigan will only win 7 games. If he stays and Harbaugh somehow stays and they give him that big contract, Michigan's going to win more than 7 games. So I gave you 2 sides to that. The next one is Texas. Quinn Ewers is coming back, and you may see Quinn Ewers in a few minutes in another segment on the show. But I think Texas now has a reason to want to be back in the playoff. They got, I'm not going to say robbed, but they got the short end of the stick. They had to play Washington in the playoff, and they only lost by a touchdown, which I think it, but they're going to have that chip on their shoulder next year that says, oh, we want revenge for losing in the playoff last year. And just a heads up, the playoff goes to 12 teams next year. So Texas could be one of the 12 teams in the playoff. Next one is Georgia. Georgia did lose Carson Beck. And no, Carson Beck is back. They did lose Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, and a few other key guys on offense and defense. But what is Kirby Smart known to do? Reload. You don't rebuild, you reload, and that is what what Georgia is going to do, is reload. They will reload on offense with Carson Beck coming back a QB, and I think they will win at least 11 games. Ohio State. If I would have made this video last week and done my way too early record win total projections, I would Ohio State at 9 or 10 wins. But now that we know that Will Howard is coming to Ohio State from K-State, I think Ohio State has as good of a chance as anybody in the Big Ten of winning 11 or 12 games. The reason I say maybe 11 is because they might go undefeated up until the Michigan game, and they can either win that Michigan game or for the fourth year in a row, lose to Michigan. But in the first scenario, I have them beating Michigan and winning the Big Ten and getting one of the top 4 seeds in the playoff. South Florida is the next one. Now, South Florida won 7 games, so I don't think it's crazy to think that USF up that and Coach Golish's second year at the helm as the head coach of South Florida football. I think South Florida can win 10 games in 2024. And I'm going to tell you why right now. 1, Byron Brown. He had a really good season last year. He's the main reason USF did really good. He stayed healthy pretty much the entire season. And now the last team I'm going to say is Kansas State. I think they can get 10 wins, and you will see in a minute how far I have them going in the Big 12. Like I say, that's a little teaser, but here we go. K-State's going to win 10 games this year. Avery Johnson is him. That is the reason Will Howard is not at K-State anymore, is because of Avery Johnson. Now, here's my way too early Heisman list. Number 1, Will Howard, Ohio State. Now, if you're going to tell me, I personally think that Will Howard going to Ohio State is a match made in heaven. Because you're going to give Will Howard all those wide receivers, Ibuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Jeremiah Smith, maybe Travion Henderson if he comes back out of the backfield. You will see another guy on here that might be going to Ohio State if Travion Henderson goes. Number 2, Cade Klubnik. For all the people out there that say, I don't like Cade Klubnik. My narrative and stance has changed on Cade Klubnik. He did struggle at the beginning of the year for Clemson, but as the season went on, he got better and better for Clemson, and they did end up winning 10 games. No, they ended up winning 9. And I was picking them to be in the ACC championship game last year, which I was wrong. And again, that's something I will admit. Number 3 on the list, Shedeur Sanders. And yes, he is coming back. He is going back to Colorado. He was at one point looking to go to the NFL, but he decided that he wanted to play one more year in college and go with it. Him and his brother Shiloh will be going to the NFL in 2025 for the 2025 draft. But I think Shedeur can be a Heisman candidate next year. The next one, number 4 on the list, Jalen Milroe, Alabama. Now, say what you will. I criticized Bama the entire season. And of course, what do? They make the playoff. They win the SEC, and they make me look absolutely horrible. They make me look bad because I talked all this mad trash about them the whole season, including Jalen Milroe. I said Jalen Milroe was not a good quarterback. And boy, was my stance on that way off. Jalen Milroe is a good quarterback. And I think he could be a Heisman candidate next year. Quentin Ewers, Texas. Yes, Quentin Ewers is going back to UT next year for another season. And I'm calling it the redemption season for Texas. Because I think they will be in the Natty next year against maybe Ohio State. Who knows? We won't know until 2024. At some point, I will be putting out my way too early top 25 college football rankings. Those will come out at some point. But the last guy, and this is a running back, Quinshon Judkins, who's at Ole Miss right now, but I hear that he might be jumping in the portal. So here's what I'm going to say is if he does jump in the portal and Trevion Henderson goes pro, I think it's a foregone conclusion that Quinshon Judkins is going to go to Ohio State, and I could see him being in the Heisman race next year. And now here's my way too early conference championship game picks. For the Big Ten. And yes, I said it and I'll say it again. I think the only 2 new teams in the Big Ten this year, I think the only 2 Pac-12 teams that are coming over from the Pac-12 that are actually going to be competitive in the Big Ten this year are going to be Oregon and Washington. Hence the example of my Big Ten title game. My way too early Big Ten championship game. Ohio State, Washington in the Big Ten championship game. And I think Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship and goes back to the playoff and doesn't get left out. Now, the Big 12. This is where you might say that I'm a little wacky and cuckoo. I have Colorado playing Kansas State in the Big 12 title game. And I think Colorado wins the Big 12 in their first year in the Big 12. Now, the ACC is another one that you might say is a little bonkers. I've got Virginia Tech and Florida State in the ACC championship game, and I think Florida State wins the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. They do have a transfer quarterback coming in, DJ Uiagalelei. I've always had trouble saying his last name, but I said it right there. Now we get down to the AAC championship game. If you saw my standings for the AAC last week, these are the two teams I have finishing at the top of the standings. But it's flip-flopped. I have regular season champ is probably going to be Memphis. Conference champ is going to be South Florida. I like what USF is building and the fact that they can attract big-time recruits to their school. Look at the recruiting class. They just got a 5-star kicker to commit that was probably going to go somewhere else if Golish wasn't the coach. The SEC championship game. And yes, people, I'm on the Texas bandwagon again, just like I am the Colorado bandwagon. I think Texas will make it back. Will make it to the SEC championship game in their first season. Season 1 in the SEC, Texas will make the SEC championship game, and they will play Alabama. It's going to be a rematch of a game from last year. I think Texas wins again, and they end up in the playoff as the SEC representative. Mountain West. Now, I did not have Boise State making the Mountain West championship game last year, especially after they fired their coach. And they made it, and I'm sorry, but that's kind of pathetic to me that you're going to fire your coach and then you go ahead and you win your conference. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's why I'm not coaching, people. That's why I'm not a coach. That's why I'm a YouTube content creator for the Alec Sports Show, which that is my name. But let's say Boise State makes it again, and they're going to play UNLV. And I think Boise State wins because they're talking about getting the transfer quarterback from the portal. And Malachi Nelson is going to visit Boise State. He's taking an official visit to Boise State this coming week. The Sunday game will be between Troy and James Madison. And I think James Madison wins the Sun Belt next year because they got robbed of winning it this year. The question is, we don't know who James Madison's quarterback is going to be because Jordan McLeod is in the portal. But I still think JMU wins the Sun Belt. Conference USA, Liberty, Western Kentucky. I think Western Kentucky Oh, I see my little. So, Conference USA, Liberty, Western Kentucky. I have Western Kentucky winning the Conference USA this year. I see the mistake. I put James Madison on there twice. That is on me. Like I said, I take pride in my videos. Sometimes I accidentally put stuff in there that twice. But that is supposed to be Western Kentucky. And then obviously you already heard me talk about the. So now we're going to get to the last part of the video. And that would be my NBA upset picks for tonight. I have 3 of them for you. My first one is the New York Knicks plus 6 points to upset the 76ers. I feel like this upset could happen. The Knicks just made a big trade to get OG Anunoby and Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn for RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, which I'm sorry, I don't know if I agree with that trade, but then again, that's why I'm not a GM. I watch basketball for the fun, but I don't know what the Knicks were doing trading Emmanuel Quickley. Well, Emmanuel IQ, he's a good player, but Tom Thibodeau doesn't know how to use his young players. And then RJ Barrett was a young star, but that's besides the fact. I think the Knicks can pull off this upset. Next, I've got the shorthanded Orlando Magic plus 9 to 9.5, plus 9.5 to upset the Denver Nuggets. Now, looking at this on paper, you could easily say that this could be a blowout in favor of Denver. But recent results show that the Magic can beat the Nuggets. They split the season series last year with Denver, and I think they can beat them in Denver tonight. And my last upset is the Houston Rockets plus 3.5 to upset the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Rockets have been one of the more surprising teams to me in the NBA this year. I feel like the Rockets can beat Minnesota and beat them really good. I don't know what it is. I just feel like they can. The Rockets can beat the Timberwolves. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard the news yet, I am lining up an interview with Jose Placer, a former point guard at University of North Florida, and he's the current grad transfer guard at University of South Florida. If you're wondering why I didn't stream anything last night, that is where I was. I was in Tampa at the South Florida Temple basketball game. And if you took South Florida minus 5.5, hey, you won some money. You won money. Money, 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 money. You won money. You want some bread. Hey, so I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to making upset picks. And we had a decent, we're 11-6 in the month of January so far with the college basketball picks, upset picks. The reason there was not any upset picks for today's show for college basketball was due to the fact that there's not really that many college basketball games. That's why I flexed it to the NBA, because there's more NBA games. There's a decent number of NBA games tonight compared to there being not that many college basketball games. But if you're enjoying, please remember to leave a thumbs up. And I do offer memberships. It is highly recommended that you purchase a membership, because we're trying to build this great Talk Sports family, this Alec Sports Show family community. We are trying to build a community here on YouTube. And maybe if we get enough members, we can build a community over on Discord or Patreon. So I would highly recommend looking into purchasing a membership. The easiest way to do that is if you have a laptop or computer. The join button is directly next to my name. So it is very easy, like I said, to purchase a membership. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for me today on the Alec Sports Show. I will catch y'all next week. Until next time, peace.